Hello and welcome back to another episode of Soulless. I usually preface these videos with a warning that viewer discretion is advised. But with this particular story, I feel that warning needs a greater emphasis. So if you're triggered by sensitive subject matters involving sexual abuse of any kind, you may want to skip today's episode, as it is very disturbing. With that being said, viewer discretion is heavily advised.
We are here because Daizsa is an angel, and in some way, she was a part of your life. But on March 21st, a lot of people's lives changed because her life was taken away. Why did Kansas City's most successful, humble, smart, talented team go missing, and it didn't even touch the newspaper until the day before her funeral? And today, August 6th, 4 months later, we still do not have any answers. We can't wait anymore for answers. It's been too long. Everything has taken too long.
It's rare that we can meet somebody like that that'll touch your life in a matter of months, in a matter of days, in a matter of seconds. It's rare. And she was that rare. I know I'm never gonna get another female, another woman like her, ever. I cherish every moment I could. It hit home for me, and this is why. My birthday was March 20th. The last thing Daizsa told me was, "Happy birthday, Dash, and I love you." I would have never known the next day she would be taken from us. So March 20th and March 21st will never be the same.
It's going to be hard when those results come out for all of us. We want closure, regardless of who it is. We want closure, we want justice, and we want the maximum. Whatever it takes. Because Daisy should be here with us. There was no reason for her to leave us at the age of 18 years old. This girl did so much to be able to make it in life and succeed. And, be able to be a part of this community. She's done so much, she's inspired so many people. And I just want y'all to know, don't give up. Because the day is going to come when all of us find out who did this today.
I just...
Daizsa Bausby was a young 18-year-old ambitious and hardworking student at Southwest High School. She was smart, she was kind, and against all odds, she was on a course to be a successful young adult by the time she matured well into adulthood. Her teachers recognized her as having the thing that makes a student special. And according to several reports, Daizsa was preparing to attend Grambling State University in Louisiana after receiving more than a dozen offers to attend various other universities. Along with her academic accomplishments, she was also a head cheerleader, which was a testament to her ability to take on the responsibilities of a leader. But sometimes, life has a cruel way of snuffing out even the strongest of fires. March 20th, 2016, Jerry Bausby rents out a room at the 4 Acres Motel for his 18-year-old daughter Daizsa and her friends to stay the night and party. When questioned by police, Jerry told them that he'd stayed in the room with Daizsa for around 20 to 30 minutes before he left and her friends arrived. By the following morning, on March 21st, motel staff would enter the room Jerry rented for his daughter to find her lifeless body lying across the bed. Once medical personnel reached the scene, they quickly concluded that her death was due to suffocation. Authorities immediately began piecing together various clues, including collecting DNA evidence from Daizsa's body and recovering surveillance footage from the motel and nearby businesses to help aid in determining what exactly happened the previous night before. As they combed over the information given by Jerry, who was the last known person to have seen her alive, distraught family members asked the question of who could possibly want to hurt Daizsa. She was a sweet girl, was a model honor student, and didn't have a history of trouble or violence, so why? Why had this happened to someone like her? As detectives recounted Jerry's version of events of what happened that night, they found that the details and testimony given by Jerry wasn't matching his story. CCTV also provided them with the facts to several inconsistencies and holes in his statement. This new evidence led authorities to make an arrest just 4 days after Daizsa was found dead inside of the room at 4 Acres Motel. And their main suspect was now Daizsa's own father, Jerry Bausby. Family said that they began to grow suspicious when Jerry didn't show up to his own daughter's funeral and stopped coming home altogether. Once police arrested Jerry, he eventually gave a bone-chilling confession of murder that was sick enough to turn any stomach within earshot. The real truth and horror of what happened came forth once the DNA evidence collected from the scene and autopsy report done on Daizsa's body was filed. On March 20th, Daizsa received a call from her father, Jerry, who then picked her up from her house around 8:30 p.m. And 1 hour later, surveillance footage shows Jerry Bausby renting a room at the 4 Acres Motel with Daizsa. After renting the room, they both enter, but only Jerry is seen on camera ever leaving the motel sometime around 3:30 a.m. that morning. No one else ever enters that room, which meant the story that Jerry gave the detectives about him renting it for Daizsa and her friends was a complete lie, given to cover up his true motive for renting out a room that night. The coroner's report came back with evidence that Daizsa had been sexually assaulted. There was DNA from her father found in an anal swab and recovered from her mouth. It was a shocking and sick revelation that makes this case one of the worst cases I've ever come across. The crime lab also found damning DNA evidence that was collected from Jerry's genitals. After he committed the sick act, while likely being drunk and or high off drugs, he suffocated his own daughter to keep her from ever speaking of the horrible truth of what happened that night. Daizsa's aunt, who was completely stunned by the revelation that Jerry was the sick individual behind the sodomy and murder of his own daughter, spoke out publicly. Daizsa had a lot of respect for her dad. She trusted her dad, so when he called, she answered. And that was the hardest thing to deal with, just to be in Daizsa's shoes, to see her own father take advantage of her. She was helpless, she said. Family also went on record to say that Jerry Bausby was addicted to drugs and alcohol, and once under the influence of either or both, he would turn into a completely different person. She also went on to say that Daizsa would talk to her with hopes that her father would eventually do something and seek help for his drug addictions. Family believes that Daizsa might have even left with her father that night under the pretense that she would be assisting him in getting help, because that's the kind of person she was. That's the kind of heart she had. And that was the kind of respect for her father that she held. I can't imagine the level of personal horror and fear that Daizsa faced that night. It absolutely breaks your heart. And if you think you've heard the worst of this case, I assure you that you haven't. Even though the DNA evidence and surveillance footage was undeniable and overwhelming, and even though 4 days after Daizsa's murder, her father, Jerry, was arrested wearing the same clothing he wore the night he sexually assaulted and sodomized his daughter, and hadn't showered or bothered to wash his clothes, this disgusting piece of trash still found a way to look the courtroom in the eyes and plead not guilty at his trial. And believe it or not, it gets worse. Jerry Bausby's defense lawyer claimed that what happened that night in the motel room was part of a consensual sexual relationship between Daizsa and her father, and that Daizsa knew exactly what she was getting herself into when she agreed to go to a motel room with her father. I do not know what Jerry Bausby said to his daughter to get her to go to a motel room with him that night, but what I do know is that if they were both there under the guise of a consenting sexual relationship, then the need to silence her with death wouldn't have existed. This was one of the most disturbing and disgusting cases that I've ever read. The ambitions of a beautiful social butterfly whose wings were clipped by someone she respected and trusted, despite his shortcomings. She was stifled by the hands of her very own father just days before her 19th birthday. She had an entire world waiting for her, and every indicator in her life up to this point said that she was going to take that world by storm. What you see is not a man, but rather a demon inhabiting a human shell. 3 years after the murder of his daughter, a Jackson County judge sentenced Jerry Bausby to 2 consecutive terms of life in prison. One for second-degree murder and the other for first-degree sodomy. He was concurrently sentenced to an additional 11 years for incest and sexual abuse. But in my opinion, none of that matters now. Because what this monster deserves is a level of justice that hasn't been seen since the biblical days. I like to think that there's something special waiting on the other side for someone like Jerry Bausby. But whatever that something is, it's far better than what he actually deserves. I only hope that the lives of those impacted by the ambitious spirit and kind soul of Daizsa Bausby continues to outlive the tragic end of her death.
First of all, me and Daizsa, we always been successful together. So now that she's gone, I have to continue her legacy. I have to continue to be successful, not only for me, but for her, to continue her legacy. So the next few weeks, I'm going to be honoring her at graduation. We all used to dance together and have fun together, so I'm going to be dancing across the stage for her. I'm going to honor her while I give the speech as salutatorian, which she would have been if she were here. Everything that I do from now on, I'm going to do it for her. I'm going to continue to love, laugh, be successful in her name.